Let me tell you about one of the greatest underdog stories in history. A story where a scrappy group of colonies took on the mightiest empire in the world and won. No, this isn't a Hollywood movie. This is the American Revolutionary War. Imagine it. 13 colonies, scattered along the Atlantic coast, standing up to Britain, the global superpower of the 18th century. Sounds impossible, right? But it happened. And it all started with one tiny, incendiary word: taxes. Picture this. You're playing your favorite online game, and suddenly the platform says, "Hey, every time you win a match, you owe us extra money." You'd be furious, right? That's exactly how the colonists felt when Britain started taxing everything from paper to tea without giving them a say. No taxation without representation became their battle cry. But back then, complaining to King George III wasn't like leaving a bad Yelp review. It was a full-on rebellion waiting to happen. The colonies were fed up. They didn't have a seat in the British Parliament, but they were expected to foot the bill for Britain's endless wars and expenses. One of the biggest sparks: the Stamp Act of 1765, a law that required colonists to pay for an official stamp on everything from newspapers to legal documents. It wasn't just about the money, it was about power. The colonies weren't going to let Britain treat them like an ATM without pushing back. Then came the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists dressed as Native Americans boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor. Why? To protest Britain's tea tax and monopoly. Imagine if your favorite coffee shop raised prices and said you could only buy from them. You'd probably riot too. Britain wasn't amused. They passed the Coercive Acts, or as the colonists called them, the Intolerable Acts, to punish Massachusetts, shutting down Boston Harbor and sending more troops to enforce British rule. The colonies were boiling over. In 1775, things exploded at Lexington and Concord, the shot heard round the world. Nobody knows who fired the first shot, but it marked the beginning of open warfare. The British thought they could squash the rebellion quickly, but the colonists were like, not today. Farmers, shopkeepers, and everyday people grabbed their muskets and became soldiers overnight. And then there was George Washington, a tall, determined Virginian who would become the leader of the Continental Army. Washington wasn't just fighting the British Army. He was fighting to unite 13 very different colonies with a shared dream of independence. It wasn't easy. His troops were undertrained, underfunded, and underfed. At one point, they didn't even have shoes. But Washington had something King George III didn't: passion and purpose. The stakes were never higher than during the brutal winter at Valley Forge in 1777. Washington's army was freezing, starving, and close to breaking. But they didn't give up. Washington kept them together, and they emerged stronger, more disciplined, and ready to fight. Meanwhile, the British were making one big mistake after another. They underestimated the colonists' determination and over-relied on their traditional tactics. The colonists, on the other hand, fought smart. They used guerrilla warfare, ambushing British troops and disappearing into the wilderness. And let's not forget their secret weapon: allies. In 1778, France joined the war, providing troops, weapons, and ships. Later, Spain and the Dutch Republic pitched in too. Suddenly, Britain wasn't just fighting the colonies, they were fighting half of Europe. The war dragged on for 8 long years, but the final blow came at Yorktown in 1781. British General Cornwallis found himself surrounded by American and French forces on land, with the French Navy cutting off his escape by sea. After weeks of bombardment, Cornwallis surrendered. The mighty British Empire had lost to a bunch of farmers and revolutionaries. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. The United States of America was born, and the world would never be the same. The American Revolution wasn't just a victory for the colonies. It was a statement to the world that ordinary people could rise up and demand freedom, no matter the odds. And here's the kicker: this war didn't just change America, It inspired revolutions around the globe, from France to Latin America. It proved that ideas like liberty and self-determination could topple even the greatest empires. So, next time you're scrolling through social media or sipping your coffee, remember the rebels who dared to dream of something bigger and fought for it. The American Revolution wasn't just a war, it was the start of a global movement. If you loved this dive into history, hit that like button, share it with your fellow history buffs, and subscribe for more oversimplified takes on the events that shaped our world. What's next? Let's just say, history is full of surprises. See you in the next video.